Who's the one NFL player you'd least want staring at you across the line? The one whose name alone makes your stomach drop. Today, we're counting the 10 scariest players in NFL history. From toothless enforcers to modern wrecking balls. One cut off the tip of his finger to keep playing. Another swung a helmet in a brawl, and one hit ended a quarterback's career on live TV. Let's get into it. The blueprint of fear. It starts in the middle. Dick Butkus didn't just tackle you, he erased your next decision. He read runs like a thief reading tells, slid through traffic, and arrived with bad intentions. Ball carriers braced. Centers peaked before the snap. When 51 filled the gap, the play didn't end, it disappeared. His presence changed routes, made coaches hedge, and turned simple dives into survival drills. What made him terrifying wasn't just force, it was timing. He'd be moving before your guard finished the first step, slipping past hands like smoke, and then punching through the ball as if it owed him money. Half the damage was psychological. Backs counted steps in their head. Tight ends checked their splits twice. You could hear pads crack and feel the air leave a stadium. Everything about the look added to the legend. Thick neck roll, low, square stance, eyes that never left the backfield. He'd shade a shoulder to bait you, then cross your face when you took the cheese. Even when he didn't make the tackle, he made the mistake. Yours. Across from him stood Jack Lambert, cold-eyed and bone-thin like a warning sign. No frills, no chatter, just angles and violence. He was the cleanup behind a ruthless front, gliding from hash to hash and cutting ball carriers in half. Receivers shortened their crosses. Backs bounced outside rather than test that interior. The nickname said it all, a night creature in cleats, turning open grass into a haunted hallway. Lambert's fear factor lived in the stare as much as the strike. Missing teeth, shoulder pads jutting like armor, he looked like he'd been built in a steel mill. He played upright until contact, then knifed low, lifting runners and dumping them where they stood. Quarterbacks felt him before they saw him. Footsteps that got louder on third and short. The common thread? Anticipation. Butkus guessed right so often it felt like a script. Lambert erased cutback lanes that shouldn't have been his. They made offenses cheat, extra motion, extra back, extra prayers. And even then, the middle belonged to them. But fear didn't stay in the middle. It sprinted to the edge. Edge of night. Fear didn't just live in the middle, it screamed from the edges. Lawrence Taylor didn't just rush the passer, he rewrote the DNA of NFL offense. His first step was theft. In one stride, he'd steal your angle, wreck your balance, and own the backfield. By his second season, he was MVP, something no other defensive player had done in decades. Teams stopped treating outside linebackers like just another body on the field and started building entire protection schemes to deal with him. Tight ends stayed in, running backs chipped, and linemen spent entire practices rehearsing a plan that usually failed within minutes. And then there's the moment burned into NFL history, the hit on Joe Theismann in 1985. It wasn't just violent, it was shattering. The sound of the collision, the sight of LT waving urgently for medics. It left the stadium frozen. That single play didn't just end a career, it sent a message to every quarterback in the league. Your blind side isn't safe. From then on, every offensive coordinator had one unspoken priority: know where 56 is or pay for it. Across from that chaos stood a force with the calm of a preacher and the strength of a wrecking ball. Reggie White, the Minister of Defense, didn't need speed to scare you. He had inevitability. His hump move could lift a 300-pound tackle into midair and toss him aside like luggage. He wasn't a pass rusher you could game plan away. Line him up at end, he'd beat your tackle. Move him to defensive tackle, he'd bulldoze your guard. Switch him over the center, good luck snapping the ball before the pocket collapsed. Reggie wasn't loud or flashy. His intimidation was in the certainty. You could block him perfectly for 2 quarters, and still, you knew he'd get home. Quarterbacks counted down in their heads, linemen braced for the blow, and fans in opposing stadiums quietly held their breath. Nearly 200 career sacks, multiple all-decade honors, and a highlight reel full of offensive linemen getting ragdolled into the turf. If LT rewired protection schemes, Reggie dismantled them altogether. One thrived in chaos, the other in control. But both made the edge the most dangerous place on the field. And if the edge is hunted, the back end punished, and sometimes sacrificed. The hit you still hear. Some players scare you before the hit. Others leave a sound in your head that never fades. Ronnie Lott was both. As the leader of San Francisco's secondary, he turned the middle of the field into a danger zone. Receivers didn't just risk losing the ball. They risked losing the will to try again. Crossing his territory felt like stepping into a trap you couldn't see until it snapped shut. And if you needed proof of his commitment, there's the story that's more than just NFL folklore. In 1985, with a shattered pinky tip, doctors gave him two choices: surgery and weeks on the sideline, or amputation. He chose amputation. No hesitation, no regret. Just strap up and play. Lott's hits weren't wild. They were surgical. Perfect angles, perfect timing, and a level of violence that didn't just stop plays. It stopped games from flowing the same way. He'd meet receivers the instant the ball touched their hands, and you could feel the contact through the TV. Quarterbacks began to hesitate on crossing routes, not because the coverage was airtight, but because they didn't want to send their best guy into Lott's blast radius. That's when you know you've crossed from good to terrifying, when your presence changes the opponent's playbook. Then there's Ray Lewis, the human thunderclap, at the heart of the Ravens' defense. His presence wasn't just felt, it was heard. Before the ball was even snapped, the pregame dance and guttural roar told you a storm was building. And when the play started, he arrived like lightning, striking with both speed and weight. Lewis wasn't just a tackler, he was a tone setter. His reads were instantaneous, his pursuit unrelenting, and his hits carried the full authority of a defense built in his image. Teammates swore his voice in the huddle could change the air you breathed. He could take a tired defense in the fourth quarter and will them into another level. Opponents, on the other hand, talked about the stare. Cold, locked in, and unsettling. He didn't just tackle you, he made you feel like you'd been hunted all game. 3rd and short against Ray Lewis wasn't just a down. It was a dare you knew you'd lose more often than not. Lott punished you for daring to come near him. Lewis punished you for daring to try at all. One ruled the skies of the secondary, the other controlled the ground at the line of scrimmage. Together, they proved that fear doesn't always live at the edges. It can live right in your path. Of course, not every enforcer played just to the whistle. Some tiptoed over the line and built their reputations there. The enforcers. Some players built their fear factor on clean, relentless dominance. Others made their name by pushing right up to the edge, and sometimes past it. James Harrison was the walking embodiment of controlled aggression, most of the time. At 6 feet even, he didn't have the prototype build for an NFL pass rusher, but that only made his dominance more unnerving. He came off the edge like a coiled spring exploding, compact but unstoppable, delivering hits that made highlight reels and fines lists. In 2008, Harrison won Defensive Player of the Year and was a cornerstone of the Steelers' Super Bowl run. But his legend was equally tied to the NFL's player safety crackdown. As the league put more emphasis on protecting quarterbacks and receivers, Harrison became the face of the debate. Helmet-to-helmet hits, jaw-rattling tackles. He was fined repeatedly, suspended once, and never apologized for playing the way he did. Ask any receiver running a shallow route against Pittsburgh during that era. They all knew 92 was somewhere in the shadows, waiting. Then you have Ndamukong Suh, a defensive tackle whose rookie year was equal parts dominance and controversy. He wasn't just big, he was a 300-pound sledgehammer with surprising quickness. Offensive linemen had to brace for impact on every snap, but Suh's reputation quickly took on another layer. The 2011 Thanksgiving Day stomp on a Packers lineman made national headlines and earned him a suspension. It wasn't a one-off either. There were low hits, late hits, and borderline plays that kept his name in every dirtiest player conversation for years. Yet, ask his teammates, and they'll tell you, Suh's edge was part of what made him great. He had the strength to drive a guard into the backfield with one arm, the speed to chase down running backs, and the attitude to make sure you felt every ounce of it. Quarterbacks knew that even if he didn't sack them, they'd feel his presence in the pocket all game long. Harrison weaponized explosion and intimidation from the outside. Suh used brute force and psychological warfare inside. Both walked that razor-thin line between feared and hated, and they didn't mind which side you thought they belonged on. And while those two blurred the line, the modern game still has players who bring fear in ways we haven't seen before. Modern trenches. In today's NFL, fear still wears a helmet, but it's evolved. Aaron Donald is proof that pure dominance can feel inevitable. At 6 feet 1 inch and around 280 pounds, he didn't have the massive frame of a traditional defensive tackle, but that only made what he did more impressive. His explosive first step stole angles before blockers even set their feet. His hands were lightning fast, his leverage flawless, and his motor relentless. For 10 seasons, offensive coordinators had to start every game plan with one question: how do we survive 99? Double teams? He split them. Triple teams? He blew through them or created chaos that freed his teammates. Donald racked up 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 8 All-Pro selections, and a Super Bowl ring, cementing his legacy as one of the greatest defensive players in league history. But what made him truly terrifying was his mentality. Every snap was personal. If you beat him once, he came back twice as hard. And while his demeanor was usually calm and professional, there were moments when his fire boiled over, like the infamous joint practice brawl, where he swung 2 helmets, a rare glimpse into the raw intensity that powered the machine. On the other side of the ball stands Derrick Henry, a 6'3", 250-pound freight train disguised as a running back. His combination of size, strength, and straight-line speed is something the league has rarely seen. Most power backs slow down in the open field. Henry shifts into another gear. His stiff arm has become viral legend, most famously launching cornerback Josh Norman through the air in 2020. That wasn't just a highlight, it was a warning. Tackling him in the open field isn't just a challenge, it's a business decision, and plenty of defenders have decided to take the scenic route instead. What's most unnerving about Henry is how he wears you down. In the first quarter, you might stop him. By the fourth, he's breaking 50-yard runs because you're already beaten up from 3 hours of collisions. Safeties start diving at his legs instead of squaring up. Linebackers start catching him instead of meeting him. And the moment hesitation creeps in, the king takes over. Donald ruled the trenches with surgical violence, collapsing pockets before plays could develop. Henry owns the open field with unstoppable force, turning would-be tacklers into highlight reel props. Different sides of the ball, same truth. You know they're coming, you know exactly what they're going to do, and you still can't stop them. But when it comes to the scariest players in NFL history, the real question is, what's scarier? The storm you can see coming or the one that blindsides you? From the bone-rattling tackles of Butkus and Lambert, to the edge-destroying chaos of Lawrence Taylor and Reggie White. From Ronnie Lott's fearless sacrifices to Ray Lewis's commanding presence. From the intimidating edge of James Harrison and Ndamukong Suh, to the modern-day dominance of Aaron Donald and Derrick Henry. The NFL has never lacked for players who could turn courage into hesitation. But what truly makes a player scary? It's not just the size, the speed, or even the violence of a single hit. It's the way they live in an opponent's head. It's the snap count you rush because you know they're closing in. It's the route you cut short to avoid their territory. It's the game plan rewritten in the locker room because of one name on the scouting report. Fear in football isn't a statistic, it's a feeling. And for every player on this list, That feeling was their greatest weapon. So the real question isn't who's the scariest in history, it's who's the scariest to you. The hitter who broke bones, the rusher who ruined careers, or the presence that made you lose before the ball was even snapped.